Okay. We were I was talking about Chris to her and the whole, thing, and I told her the history of her marriage, basically. And I was telling her a story, something that Chris explained to me that when he was in the military, the reason that he doesn't like to be called, and he identifies more with the ranger was because he said, how you get to be a ranger is your infantry, and they'll come and select you if you're good, and say, well, would you like to learn how to be a pathfinder? And so they'll go through that little school and get like a little patch or something, a certification. Say, would you like to be a sniper? And they'll go through that school and learn how to get that little patch. And after they collect all the patches required for a ranger, then they get the ranger tab, right? And even though, and so he's a ranger, right? And then he goes and they say, well, would you like to get another thing and another thing? And so he keeps going to different schools and collecting patches to the point where then, okay, now you have the qualifications,
Hmm.
but you're not necessarily in a battalion, so to speak, or a squad or a group. You're kind of like on not on hold. You're like in a pool, so that if the regular guys that are out there doing the job, somebody dies, somebody retires, whatever, they can look through their pool of people and pluck you out and say, would you like to be a part of this? And they can say yes or no. So you've got this pool of people. And so for Chris, he never went into that battalion or whatever it's called, where they're actively doing stuff. He was in the pool of people. So that's what he did. His main job was as a ranger, that he was in the battalion. He did that. That was his job. And so when they needed someone special with the special qualities or whatever skill set and was in a perfect location for it, whatever, they would give him a call and say, would you like to do this? And if he say no, then they go to the next guy, the next guy, the next guy. And so they pull him out. And he got married and got out before he ever got into that, like official battalion thing or group, whatever it's. And I got to thinking about how Nathan Reynolds was talking about in his world, they had books on their people, on their abused people, on trained people. They had certain training, and within the book were certain pages with their different skills, like a patch that the ranger or like I was telling to Michelle, like a Boy Scout. You got your fire maker patch and your this patch, and you got all these patches. So Nathan Reynolds described it as his that he had a book, and in the book were the pages were the different skills, parts, so to speak, right? They have the picture of the part and their skill level and whatever, and that people could buy a single page. So I'm a perpetrator, and I got some certain um, job or ritual that as a Luciferian, I want to gain points. So I need to do this particular ceremony and I need this particular skill. So I'm going to find get up, collect as many books as I can, or a single individual, and say, okay, well, I need a Leo or a Capricorn, and I need someone that could be an assassin or a sex slave or whatever. So they look there, it's like they're shopping on a menu and they look through all the different books, right? And within the book, they'll flip to the page they want and say, okay, this guy matches, this guy matches, this guy matches. So they approach that family and say, can I buy or lease that page? So, because they don't necessarily buy the whole book, they just buy the skill that they need for a certain amount of time, kind of like the ranger or they have a certain job, you have the skills, you're going to go do it, and then when you're done, you're going to go back to your wife and kids and whatever. So same thing with Nathan Reynolds. And I kept thinking about it in in terms of me and Michelle, because I had another memory, believe it or not, John, Prince William and Prince Harry.
Hmm.
I was like, and I always come back to the same question. Why me? What is so special about me? Well, who am I that anybody would care? And I started thinking about this Ranger thing
That's
and
right.
Nathan Reynolds, and it dawned on me, duh, we probably each have our own books,
Hmm.
right? And so if such and such rich person wants to climb the ladder and he needs to perform a certain ritual, he's going to say, "Well, I'm on the West Coast and I need a Leo and I need a whatever XYZ qualities." And he'll be given a selection of books and say, "Well, here's these people with these qualifications within that book." They'll flip through the page and say, "Yeah, I want to buy this page or lease this page," right? And so that's why we're selected. And so I was starting to make sense of it. Why me? Always the question, what's so special about me? And it's not that it's me individually that's special, but it's the book of qualities, right? And oh, I just went blank. And I said to Michelle, I said, well, it's kind of like a Boy Scout, isn't it? And I said, think about Boy Scouts. They're abused too. And they got all these patches on their arms and they run around town all proud of the patches they've made. I said, what if those patches are more than just fire making? And Michelle piped in and said, oh my God, all my brothers were required to go through the Boy Scouts, that they had to go through the Boy Scouts. And I thought, well, okay, maybe that's another filtering process, and they've got their book is displayed on their sleeve. You know, the military would display, well, not display, but they would have, like I said, you and I have always talked about how they would have records and it would follow us. And that one time I saw a guy looking at a card of me, and I thought, well, okay, who would own the book? I thought, well, Nathan Reynolds' family, they're wealthy, so they would own his book and lease out his pages, right? And Michelle's family would own her book and lease out her pages. But in my family, I think when my mom divorced my dad, and my dad wasn't wealthy, and I don't think his parents were either. If they did, they hid it. As their house certainly wasn't wealthy. It was a big house, but it was a cluttered mess. Um, I wonder if my dad sold my book to my handler who was in the Sierra, sold it to the government or the military or whatever. And because once I got to Iowa after mom divorced dad, dad had no more control over me. So maybe he sold my book. Or like I said to you a long time ago, that him sending me to that school, Sisters of Notre Dame, he had to pay for it. And my going out and doing jobs was part of the payment. But what if he would never got paid up? He would sell my book, right? So I thought, well, okay, in families like Michelle's or Nathan's, the family would keep the book and lease the pages. But for me, I think they gave the book to the military. First to my handler in Iowa, and then to the military. And that is what seems to have followed me up until the age of 39.
Hmm.
And that's when I finally stopped asking, why me? Because it's not me individually, it is, but it's me that's a part of a pool of people that they can choose from. And they open up the book and say, well, this person doesn't have that page. I need this particular page as they're going through their menu, and Michelle and I were just talking about that and going, oh my, Michelle says, well, I got a session and I got to tell John about this. I said, I was thinking about that too. John needs to know. And so that's why she sent the message and actually took us 30 or 45 minutes of talking about this. I can't believe I got it out in 10 minutes.
Makes
So
sense. right? It makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm like, why would Michelle and I be singled out at the age of 9 to go to the Mission Inn for this particular ceremony with all these people who would someday become presidents? Why? What's that about? So the Satanists themselves must have their own book or record of what rituals they have performed, right? And that they've got a pecking order and certain rituals that they have to go through in order to climb their ladder. Just like we would have our book, and we're not necessarily climbing a ladder, we're just accumulating pages for them to be able to feed on to go through their rituals to climb their ladder, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe the part of the organization that keeps track of all that is the Masonic orders.
Yeah, or even the military. 'Cause
Hmm.
Nathan, I think, was it Gray? Gray talked about how the satanic people are almost in competition with the scientific people. But
Hmm.
even though they're in competition with each other, they still work together. So it could be, yeah, either the Masonic lodges where the satanic supernatural whatever is stored, or the government and the military
That would make sense that
where the
they're
scientific
kind of
stuff
the
is.
brokers. They're the repository of these kids, and then you only have to go if you're a perpetrator, you just go to because think about how many people in high places are connected to the Masons.
Yeah, and I thought about this too in terms of trafficking,
Mhm.
the illegal aliens. Those, I believe, are the people, individuals that are the sacrifices, the ones that just get sucked into the system and are killed and processed and whatever, and they're the food for the ritual.
They're the adrenochrome kind of thing.
Right, but we yeah, we are trafficked too, but we are the ones, the middle spot to perform the evil deeds under the control
Mhm.
of those people. And geez. I saw I've been watching a series, it's a Western, um, called 1924. It's got Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren in it, and it's the
Huh.
I don't know if you've heard of the show Yellowstone, but this is the
I've just seen little snippets, trailer.
right. Well, they went back in time to show you how that family got to where they are in the year 2020.
Oh,
And
okay.
they took you to 1884, that generation, and then they take you to 1924, that generation. It's the last episode, or episode 8, I believe is the last one, where this man, he owns he's a big shot. He's got a lot of money and he's trying to control and get the Yellowstone, the land, because he wants to mine it and make money. And so the family's fighting him. Anyway, they show him in a house with a couple of hookers and that were there for somebody else that wound up in jail. And the guy in jail said, well, can you go pay the hookers off so they don't rob me blind? So he goes there and rather than pay them off, he gives them more money and he says, well, here's what I want you to do. And he made the one hooker lay down on the table, face down, and the other hooker to spank her hard. And he showed her how hard he wanted her to do it. And he just sat there drinking his drink, enjoying it. And so then you cut to the next time that they're back at the house, and he goes back to the house a second time. And now you see these hookers who were real jolly and jovial and having a great time. Now they're all drawn. Their eyes have black spots. You can see that they had been tortured. Even the one doing the torturing was really just broken apart because of what she had to do. And so he says, okay, get in your positions and do it again. And so they're doing it. And finally he said, okay, stop. And the girl that was doing the whipping stopped and looked at him, and you could just see she was ready to fall apart. And he says, do you know why I do this? And she's like, no. He said, for the power. I do it for the power of it. She goes, I don't understand. He said, what I want you to do now is take the thing and whip her again the same way. But I want you to think about the power you have. And so she starts doing it, and rather being drawn and upset and feeling spiritually guilty or whatever, now she's going, wow, I do have the power. I do have, and you can see her whole demeanor changes. And I'm watching this thinking, that's what our parts went through. That's what we were taught to embrace that power position. And so when she finally embraces this, it's a matter of 1 minute. It's not real long and drawn out. And she's thinking, yeah, man, I don't have to be tortured. I get to do the torturing, and it's all good, and I got the power. She embraces this. He sees her embrace, and he says, okay, stop. So that they stop. He says, now trade positions. And because the one who had been whipped for 2 days is in really a lot of pain and whatever, she stands up, and the one who was doing the whipping is now freaked out and scared. Holy shit, I don't have the power anymore. She lays down. They reverse positions like what I have had to go through. And now the one who was whipped for 2 days is just furious. And she's like, she embraces that power position right away and just goes to town. And all the while, the guy's just sitting there sipping on his drink, watching him, smiling. And I was like, holy crapola.
And where would they come up with that idea?
Exactly. And the whole while, I could see me, Angie, and Mary torturing each other as
There we
little
go.
girls. Um, I was reminded of some stories or documentaries that I had watched about what
Well,
happened in
yeah.
Buda, well, Nazi Germany, in Poland. That's where it was, Poland. And so, can you make a predator that way, even though you're also a victim? But at a certain point, if you're doing both, that I guess that's just the part creation.
Yeah, what you'll never make though is one of them to become like that guy.
Yes, yeah,
There's
because they
right
don't have
there's
the
the thing.
money. And so I was thinking about this guy and his power position, and now he's teaching him about power and thinking about Chris and the Ranger thing and the Boy Scouts with the patches and Nathan with his books and pages. And it just all kind of came together. It was just really fascinating. We had to share it with you. Not necessarily
Well,
a session, but I thought, I don't know if you've ever heard about that, the books with the pages, but Nathan will talk about that.
no, I haven't heard that. I haven't listened.
Literally, it was like a binder that had
Oh,
pages, all his different
it makes
parts.
sense. But it's kind
And
of
they
like
would
the
lease
NFL.
out and for a certain amount of time, for a
There you go.
certain amount of money.
It's like
But
a
for
sports.
me, my family didn't own my book, not once mom left dad.
That makes sense, right? So it's kind of like they do in a sporting NFL or I'm more familiar with football. What are you
Yeah.
going to trade, right? And so
Oh, yeah, their stats, I guess, would be their book
there we go.
and determine how much money they get paid and for how long. Or
So
or if they are initiated into Masonic clubs and have raped 10 children already, then you get 50 million, but the guy who hasn't done the rapes gets 5.
there you go. Almost like fantasy football or whatever right? That you have people that are just it's horse trading. Where are we going to put on our team in what position?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's just
that makes
all
sense.
these weeks and months, I just always come back to the thought, why me? What does this want me? Why is is it my family name? Is it what? And I finally figured it out today. I mean, yeah, it's me individually, but it's because I'm part of a pool that has certain pages in my book.
There you go.
And Michelle had the same thing, but what she pointed out to me was I didn't realize she had so many adopted brothers and sisters, like 18 of them or something. And she said all the boys were required to go through Boy Scouts. They
Mm.
had to go through Boy Scouts, whether they wanted to or not.
Yeah, and they were being perked on.
And I was like, wow, okay.
And
I
it's a
don't know. I
perfect
don't,
justification. You send them out somewhere with these scout masters. Even the term scout master, thank you.
oh, right, huh?
Right. Um, but yeah, this makes total sense. I also think that for you and Michelle, um, thinking about how psychopaths, these men, these males, right? You guys just happen to be, they were sperm donors,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So you guys happen to be born into they had no, they never intended to care. So you were, it's just like you were chattels, so to speak, right? When somebody becomes a psychopath, um, so whether in the inner city, and that's not, it's just reality. Like, how many guys did I come across that were from the inner city in the prison, and they talk about how they're a good dad to all their kids, to all their 12 kids to 8 women or something. It's
right,
like
right. I know.
somehow, so it's like talking to somebody in organized crime or something, right? Talk about the Godfather, isn't that an interesting term? Right? They don't say the God psychopath, it's the Godfather. We're going to layer this term
Yeah,
that's it, it's a play. It's going to play in somebody's mind. Well, the Godfather, we're an
yeah, and
organized
God
crime
and
family.
Father and yeah,
Okay, we're an organized crime family. The whatever family, and it's like, okay, wait, this is not okay. But I thinking how psychopaths think and work, it it had to be a real notch on their belt. It's one thing, like I have one client that I think very much, right, was involved in MK Ultra, SRA stuff. She is concluding that. But her dad was too much of a reactive low life in the
out of
sense he
control.
react.
Yeah,
Okay, there's nothing. He didn't get involved in any organized thing. He was just an addict, and so no doubt he rented her out to somebody. But um, for you all, I mean, what a boon to a psychopath who happens to have a daughter. So they get a reputation then, like, wow, not only can he create this, but it's his own daughter. And so now the psychopaths love the idea. And then I'm thinking when you were taken over to Turkey, the former Prime
oh
Minister of
yeah,
Turkey.
yeah. It's like every time, why me? Why would you want to fly me to this other country?
So
What's
it fits into the novelty. Maybe that's it. So it's the ultimate in your face. We can do this to a kid. We're marring, scarring the soul. Yet then at the flip of a switch, the child doesn't remember. So it's the ultimate control, and
yeah,
they
that's
just get a kick
cool.
out of it. They get a right that it's a push button. I guess the next best thing, a strange sort of way, to a sex robot. But now all these, but not even right. But think about these guys that are purchasing these personal assistant robots now.
Oh, I know.
But that's not even as much fun for a psychopath because everybody knows it's a robot.
Yeah,
So to have
there's no
ultimate slave,
emotional,
right? That
yeah.
wants to do that. Meaning, will smile, but meanwhile, you've tortured this kid. So it's very nouveau. It's very, I mean, it's all sick. So I think that was probably then another part of it that your parents got extra notches on their belt, they were
But
known then among circles because it's you're not renting out somebody else's kid. I'm thinking like your handler Jack, Diana, right?
yeah,
He,
he's climbing his ladder.
there you go.
So he
But can
needs
you
to
imagine?
provide a
There you go. He was
slave.
the broker. He was the broker. But can you imagine if he had a kid that he could? There's just this
I
sense of
know.
novelty, and I was thinking, like Michelle, you've referenced that part of what your folks did was horse breeding, and it'd be like having a triple crown winning horse, and now you're known for these horses, and people want to then borrow your horse, so to speak. So it's not only profiting off of it, but you get this reputation. So these,
Yeah, yeah, in their
groups,
circles.
there
But
you go. There
that's
you
what I
go.
was saying to Michelle. I said, so Michelle, it's not, when she and I first met, she described herself as a breeder. But then down the road, I'm learning she's been in almost every single state in the United States and she's been across the world. I said, so you're not just a breeder. You had some ritual or something done
Mhm.
that gave you another page in your book that someone required in a different location so that they could climb a ladder by using you, the power of using you. You know what I mean? And the same with me. So I'm like, why would you take this mediocre, lower middle income girl to Turkey? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, in Germany, I was already in Germany, but I got this book with pages. And hey, let's let me as the first sergeant or the general of this thing, I got this girl in my unit. Uh, let me send her to this thing, go through this ritual, and I get points.
There we go. That's what happened for you.
Yeah. So it's not about I'm so special that they want me. It's about how many, what, this pool of people, this pool of books. And I had
Kids.
just the right pages, and maybe they liked the way I looked better than the other girl. We had the same pages or whatever. But yeah, it just kind of flashed through my mind. And like I said, we were talking about it for 45 minutes. And we thought that, oh my God, we have to tell John. And then I
Yeah.
thought that, well, maybe we should record it. And instead of this, we're going to skip this Saturday, maybe I could put this up, in place of that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm going to find that clip off that movie because it's just maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I don't think I'd violate copyright and put that in there for people to see. This is how parts are created, and this is how the elite think. It was so perfectly done. I was blown
Yeah.
away when I watched it.
So somebody had to create that scene in their mind. Only a psychopath is going to be able to come up with that.
And obviously because it's commonplace, I don't think they had to think too hard about it.
Yeah.
You know, well, we do this all the time. Let's just put it in this movie here, or whatever.
Yep. And therein also lies the difference between the guy that was the shot caller, so to speak, versus those girls. And so you can have somebody reacting. So that's where we might use the term hurt people, hurt people. Okay, so they're reacting. But in the meantime or the meanwhile, as they're hurting each other, they're not able to, because of the trauma, they're not able to take a step back and say, well, who orchestrated this from the very beginning? Because that's where the rage. Can you imagine if both of them tapped into their rage, looked at the guy?
They could have killed him.
Hey, there you go. So
Exactly.
that's
It's the
that's
same
really
theory as
healing in
this.
a nutshell for SRA.
It's the
That's it.
same theory as I heard someone talk about
That's right.
in a concentration camp. Is that there was one guard for like 100 people.
Mhm.
Is that at any time those 100 people could have grouped together and taken
Right.
out that guard and escaped or did whatever they were going to do, but because they were so stuck in their programming, it just never crossed their mind.
That's right. Right. They lost hope, and therefore they lost. it's very much psychological warfare. Very much so. Hmm.
Yeah, anyway, so that's all I got.
Well,
I don't know if it was as important as us needing to talk to you today and tell you and record it and
no,
all
no,
that, but
excellent.
it
Excellent.
just was it's like a big aha for me today. I was like, holy crapola.
Well, and I think that'll help then a lot of survivors because it'll then once somebody can then realize and kind of shift from what is it about me to this is what they had in mind. This is what they were doing to me, to us. So I was just a number. This
And they
is the
wanted to
things that,
create another page in their book
yeah.
so they could
So this
sell
is the
you in a
things that,
different way.
there you go. Right, any survivor tap into that, you're going to be set free real fast. I mean, talk about there ain't no cult loyalty after that.
Oh no, no,
Like,
not at
okay,
all.
so I get it. I get it. I was just a rent-a-kid in all of this.
And that's why so many different rituals that kept getting upped and upped and
Right.
upped and upped. It's because the person that owned your book wanted to rent you out so that they could go up and up and up. And the guy that bought your page or leased your page wanted more points and more points. So it's just this feeding cycle.
Right. And if you didn't die or go crazy or whatever, then
All
that
the
was
more. Let's do some
it.
more.
And
Yeah.
so by virtue, it's a process of elimination as well. What kids can handle this? Well, we've got out of the whole pool of kids that started out, well, just 100,000, but there's more.
Oh yeah.
Here are the kids that can take, like Timex, right?
can
Take a
can
look and
keep splitting and handle it.
that's right.
And the
So,
ones that can't split go insane or die or are killed
yeah,
because you're no longer useful.
that's right. So it'll
Wow.
be the few that end up being able to split to such an extent. It's like Timex, keep a licking and keep on ticking. So
Well,
it narrows the pool of those kids that were
well, and
able to
I've
be used.
yeah, and I've heard quite a few different, well, I don't know if I should say quite a few, but Nathan Reynolds and I believe Gray and maybe one or two other people I've watched on interviews, they all said that survivors have high IQs. And I'm
Mhm.
of the belief that that high IQ is what affords the ability to keep splitting
Right.
and compartmentalizing to
Mhm.
survive. Because if you took someone with an IQ of 85 or, a mentally handicapped person and put them in that, I don't know that they're going to split and survive. They might just die. So that means all of us that have survived to this age have an IQ level and skill set that has been so hidden from us. And we've
Right.
been taught that we're stupid, we're
There
idiots,
you
we're
go.
this, we're
Right there.
that.
Right there.
And to realize that, it's like, oh my God. Oh my God. I'm not stupid. I'm not this. I'm not that.
Right.
I mean, not to have this egotistical presentation of it, but I think
That's right.
that's what affords us the ability to split.
That's
Because
right. And
when me and
yeah,
Angie Mary were kids, I got tested around 3, 4, 5 years old in that bar, in that mobster's bar at midnight with my dad feeding me sugar to keep me awake, testing my IQ, my aptitude, and this and that. And I don't know if Angie and Mary were tested at a different place or time or whatever, but at some point they decided I was the one to be have a book created, and Angie and Mary would be my handlers.
yeah.
And I'm like, what's the difference between us? I mean, I've had my IQ tested. I know what it is, but I don't know that Angie and Mary have ever had, or if they even know. So it's like, wow, it's just mind blowing to me. It just all kind of came together this morning, and I was excited to tell
And
you.
that's one of, I think, one way to really discern. Like, we won't give the guy any airplay, but we're all familiar with a certain guy who is probably involved in all sorts of stuff. He has military background. Now, we're not going to give him any more credence than he deserves. He's probably a flunky, but at the same time, he's talented enough with computer stuff. He can do multiple personality with fake accounts. I mean, he'll have three of his fake accounts where they're all talking.
Uh-huh.
He's having fun with this whole thing.
Yeah, he
Okay.
does.
But it's an art form. And so this is one way that, and Diana, if you're going to be airing this will be good for anybody to then keep in mind. If you see this quality, so somebody that reacts against, so appears out of the blue in somebody's feed, if you're talking about certain topics such as the dangers of porn, the
Mhm.
dangers of furries, the dangers of is pushing the term trans or MAPS, minor attracted perps, minor attracted perps, rebranding of pedophilia.
It is.
Cross-dressing guys, this AGP crap that's being pushed. Blanchard came up with this term. Um, that's fine, but it's a silly, you know. Um, the people that need the title aren't seeking the title, right? Because they're not the ones that need the little term are the ones that are seeking out help through therapy, and they don't care about the term. And it
I'm
would
not
only
sure
be
I
for
understand that part.
AGP. So what you're
Oh,
going to find is those that are most antagonistic, if you say AGP are just a bunch of deviant guys, you watch who comes out of the woodwork, and inevitably they're going to follow the most deviant of male sexologists. Okay, so all that to say, that's a little composite picture of if you're on social media, maybe Twitter, and all of a sudden somebody comes onto your feed or starts to engage with you. How do you know if he's a perp or a predator? He's going to show an unusual interest in dialoguing and engaging. And there
hmm.
will be a certain process that he will go through. First, it's very user friendly. Then he'll inquire. And then he'll want to inquire a little more in dialogue. And then he's going to sound reasonable. Well, could it be? Or maybe we misunderstood. Right? He's just working it. He's working
Hmm.
these.
Hmm.
But the moment you start to become a little more forthright, say, well, you know, this is porn, you know, this is deviance. Oh, now he goes on the attack.
Uh-huh.
And the one thing that they will inevitably throw out there is you're bigoted, you're phobic, you're mean, you're nasty, how you're
So it's the
uncaring.
name
Okay.
calling. Yeah.
So he's basically, these kind of people will float the card that you are mean, yet very quickly, almost in the same breath, they will call you stupid. Yet
Yeah.
they know, having interacted with somebody, especially if the person references they're a survivor, okay, these perps also will float the term misogynist. Well, if there's ever a working definition of misogyny, it is demeaning a female. So why,
Which
of
they
all
do.
categories of females, would you demean a female by calling her stupid? But somehow those that float the term misogynist, they can sit there and say these survivors are stupid. All they need to do is get the person, it's just a tactic on their part, to start to give them, the perp apologist, any sort of credence. So the moment the perp says, well, that's because you have a mental illness or you've been a survivor. So you're a little, you're not all quite put together. You're not wrapped tightly, so to speak. Or
Yeah,
you're
I
IQ.
got all that this
You're
week.
kind of stupid. If anybody responds to what they're saying, those guys will just continue to double down on it rather than. So my recommendation for any survivor is don't question yourself. And the moment you're hearing them start to get personal, you know they're unmasking themselves. So now you can go to the heart of the matter with them, and they won't know what to do with this. They'll never say you're right. They just sidestep all the
They do.
so
They never
right?
say you're right. You
Because
can't
it's
reason
just
with them at
part
all.
of the game. It's just pure chess. So my suggestion is always go to their deviance because that's what they're trying to deflect the narrative away from, which is
Hmm.
they're just porn saturated deviant guys that probably are um, even into things to the extreme of exploitation. So they're trafficking kids. They want to gain
Yeah.
access to the kids. So a survivor or somebody speaking to the issue of child protection, before you know it, they've gotten that person, the survivor, or anybody else, into these rabbit hole little discussions, all to get the narrative away from. So bring the
Hmm.
narrative back to their deviance,
Didn't you follow the thread? I'm like, no, I don't need to.
what they want.
You
And
know?
that's why the more they can do, and that one guy that we're talking about, what he's got, he probably has nine, he has to have more than that. But I think he's got 8 or 9 fake accounts. And when we keep, or you, we've all chime, we'll say his first name, Matt. I'm not Matt.
I know,
That's it.
right?
I'm not Matt.
And
It's
Matt, you've
just,
always been Matt.
yeah, yeah. Even though Matt's got this guy's um,
Yeah,
account
yeah.
sprinkled for his little gossip call. But those are classic examples of what these guys will do as far as trying to make highly intelligent survivors feel stupid.
Hmm.
Don't fall for it.
Yeah, or attack you personally, and
Yeah,
you
right?
can't.
Hmm.
Yeah, you've got to be solid in knowing who you are
That's
for
right.
it to bounce off.
Because they know how intelligent you guys are.
I never thought about that.
Oh yeah, no, and the worst case scenarios, you have the personal experience. And so, I mean, the gig's up.
Well, that's what I said to, I forget which one of them was. I said, I can face down demons. Can you?
That's right.
Didn't get a response on that. Anyway, I don't know if you want to go through any more. It's that we could end off and you and Michelle can start early if you want.
Well, it's good. And it's good. And
Yeah.
did want to mention on Redacted, the show Redacted. I was thinking about MK Ultra and remote viewing. They had a episode where they have a guest on talking about apparently the CIA has known about the Ark of the Covenant. And so they have a guest on who's talking about that, and so I forget Clayton's last name, the host of it, and so uh, the host Clayton says, "Now, how did they find the Ark of the Covenant?" And they said, "Well, it used to be called remote viewing. I forget the term they use now, psychic
I know it's something I
dynamic."
ran
But
into
it's
it.
very interesting how he said, "Oh, this has been going on for years."
Yeah.
And Diana, even prior to, I had heard about it, but prior to you and I working together, I didn't give it much credence. But to think that, I mean, now us and Michelle, right? But to think that, oh, he just comes right out with it.
Yeah.
Says, oh, this is just a normal thing.
Just what we did. Yeah.
So the
I
general
think they
public,
call it not psychological warfare, but psych warfare, something like that.
whatever the term is, if I
Or
could find it.
PSI, I think they call it. In the book I was reading, that's what they refer to it as PSI, small letters too, psi.
What did I call it? I forget, but yeah. So it's like you said, though. So those of us that aren't steeped in the world of the CIA, MK Ultra. I mean, I've learned a lot now, obviously. Um, but to think that the idea of remote viewing is just a very real thing.
Oh yeah, all the psychic
Yeah,
powers have been used, and they've been farting around with that, I think, since Nazi Germany, if not before.
yeah. And that's where, again, you all can take heart that you know what you know. Don't let any of these naysayers, same thing, those same kind of people will push the false memory foundation, all those lines that we've
Yeah,
all talked about.
yeah.
So just be confident in what you know.
Yeah, and trust your memories
There you go.
and trust that part. Yeah, that's the biggest deal.
There you go.
So, okay, well, I guess we'll wrap up. I didn't even do an introduction. Maybe
You-
do one after this.
Okay, there you go. Well, and we'll pick up the other series we're doing in due time.
For sure. Okay, good. Well, thank you for popping on real quick, unexpectedly like this. I appreciate it. Thanks, Michelle, for arranging this. I hope your eye is feeling better.
And she's had eye surgery, which certainly triggered a lot of memories as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's drained her, and her pharmacy and her doctors are jerking her around, and it's just been stressful. So, all right, well, thank you everyone for listening. And we'll see you next time. Bye.